Shocking discovery. What lies beneath Antarctica's ice will haunt you forever. Deep within the frozen wasteland of Antarctica, where the wind howls like a tortured spirit and the ice stretches for miles, a mystery lies buried, something so profoundly unsettling it could shake the very foundations of what we know. Whispers have traveled from scientist to scientist, tales of strange, otherworldly structures hidden beneath the thick sheets of ice. Are they the remnants of an ancient civilization, or something far more sinister? When researchers discovered an enormous, perfectly shaped cavern glinting under the ice, a chill raced down the spine of every soul who heard of it. The cavern was not just a hole. It was an abyss, dark and deep, an environment untouched for eons. Inside, enormous stalactites hung like frozen daggers, and strange, bioluminescent fungi glowed with an eerie light. What kind of life could exist in such a desolate setting? The thought was thrilling and terrifying. It was like finding a hidden portal to another world, one filled with both promise and dread. Investigators reported whispers echoing within the chamber, a haunting sound that chilled them to the bone. Were they alone? The closer they pushed into the abyss, the darker the shadows became. They found footprints, not from men, but from something else, something large and unrecognizable, leaving imprints in the frost. An unsettling feeling spread among the team like wildfire. They were not just explorers. They were trespassers in a realm where time had stopped. But what terror awaited them deeper inside the ice? Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the team ventured further into the cavern, tension gripped them, each creak of ice echoing like a gunshot in the silence. Their flashlights danced across the walls, casting long, eerie shadows that flickered and waned like the last gasps of life. Suddenly, a loud crack. The ice trembled beneath their feet, sending a wave of panic through the group. Heartbeats thundered in their ears as they stumbled backward. What was moving beneath the ice? The whispers grew louder, more urgent, as if pleading for release or warning them to leave, but it was too late. They had awakened something. What horrors remained dormant, waiting to emerge? The feeling that something was watching them lingered in the air, thick, oppressive. The deeper they dug, the more questions they uncovered, but many of those questions led to dark answers. They stood at the threshold of the unknown, and what lay beneath their feet threatened to bolt into the light, unleashing unimaginable chaos. What could it be, this thing beneath the ice, slumbering for millions of years? And could they escape before it was too late? The air crackled with tension as they gazed into the abyss, breaths shallow and minds racing. They exchanged nervous glances, aware that turning back now seemed impossible, like running from a creeping nightmare that had already ensnared them. They knew they were crossing lines that should not be crossed. "Maybe we should set up camp here," whispered Sarah, her voice barely louder than a breath, eyes darting towards the shadows. The thought of facing whatever prowled in this frozen darkness sent shivers down her spine. But it wasn't that simple. Jess, the team leader, shook her head, her jaw set in determination. "No, we came here for answers. This could be groundbreaking." Her conviction resonated with the group, igniting a spark of bravery amidst the fear. But bravery often dances dangerously close to recklessness, and nobody could shake the deep-seated feeling that something terrible lurked just beyond the ice as they deepened their exploration. Every step echoed ominously, shattering the heavy silence. Their flashlights flickered against strange, alien structures. The walls glimmered like scales, reflecting the beams in all directions. What were these formations? Carved by nature, or of something more sinister? Suddenly, a distant rumble rolled through the cavern, akin to thunder reverberating in the ground. The ice jolted beneath their feet once more, this time more violently. A crack split the air, and thick shards of ice littered the ground. Panic erupted. They scrambled for stability, terrified that the frozen ceiling would collapse entirely. "Run!" yelled Mark, the youngest of the team, his eyes wide with terror. They sprinted toward the cavernous mouth, instincts screaming flee before something buried in the dark awakened, uncoiling from its slumber. But as they retreated, their hearts racing, they stumbled upon something odd. A smooth surface glittering beneath the frost. Mark knelt to clear away the ice. His fingers traced symbols etched into the surface, symbols that felt agonizingly familiar, tugging at the edges of his memory like a forgotten dream. "Guys, look!" His voice wavered as he gestured to the discovery, but dread washed over the group like a chilling wave. This couldn't be a coincidence. Could it? The design was unmistakably otherworldly, and in that moment, the whispers picked up once more, circling them tighter and tighter. A cacophony of despair layered deep in the abyss. A sense of urgency swept through them as unease morphed into something darker. They weren't just uncovering ancient remnants. They were trespassing into a realm alive with secrets that could unravel everything they thought they knew. Just as Jess turned to urge the team to move forward, a guttural roar erupted from the depths of the cavern, splitting through the air like an electric jolt. It reverberated inside their chests, freezing them in place. Whatever had been awakened was no longer content to remain hidden. "Run!" she screamed again, but her voice was drowned out by another deafening roar closer this time, shaking the very ice around them. An inferno of adrenaline surged through the group. They bolted toward the opening, hearts pounding, every instinct urging them on as screams filled the air. They could feel it now, the hot breath of something ancient and unforgiving, hot on their heels. What had they unearthed? Could they escape in time? The cavern seemed to breathe with a life of its own, urging them onward while hiding the true horror that lay just beneath the surface. As they staggered toward freedom, the shadows deepened, and the whispers converged into one resounding cry. They weren't just explorers anymore, they were prey. What emerged from the dark as they broke free could change everything. But would they live to tell the tale? They burst into the blinding light of the outside world, the icy winds biting at their exposed skin. Jess stumbled, gasping for breath, her heart hammering as she looked back into the cavern. The colossal openings yawned wide, a black maw that felt like it was watching them. "Did you see it?" Mark shouted, his voice cracking with hysteria. "What the hell was that?" "We have to move," Jess insisted, rallying her team. "We can't stop now. It could follow us." They were 10 feet away from the icy mouth when the ground shuddered beneath them. The sound of the roar echoed again, louder this time, reverberating in the air like a thunderclap. Ice and snow cascaded from the surrounding cliffs, causing them to cower instinctively as if the earth itself was collapsing around them. Closer and closer that dreadful presence loomed. Each pulse of its roar felt deliberate, a warning, a hunt. They stumbled into a sprint, the frozen tundra suddenly feeling less like a pristine wilderness and more like a treacherous trap. The weight of the unknown clung to them like shadows. Jess led the group across the hostile terrain, the thin air filled with dread and desperation. The chilling wind howled, ripping through their clothes, mixing with the adrenaline shooting through their veins. They needed a plan fast. "Over there," Sarah pointed to a cluster of jagged ice formations. A temporary shelter could hide them long enough to regroup. They veered toward it, hearts beating like war drums in the heavy silence between roars. Clinging to a massive structure, they breathed heavily, listening for signs of pursuit. All they could hear was the hollow silence of the snow, punctuated by their own ragged breaths. The air was sharp and filled with anticipation, but nothing emerged. What was that thing? Mark's voice was barely above a whisper, filled with a mixture of fascination and pure fear. Jess shook her head, brows knitted. "I don't know, but we can't ignore those symbols. There's got to be a connection." A chill ran down Sarah's spine at the thought. "But what if it's a warning? What if we're not meant to uncover it?" Mark fidgeted, glancing back toward the cavern mouth. Shadows flickered at the entrance, pulsating against the ice like something alive. "Look, could come out any second." Every instinct screamed for them to run again. But where? The vast, Icy wasteland offered no refuge. They would have to face whatever lurked beyond, and fear gnawed at their minds. As tension thickened, Jess squinted against the encroaching shadows, her resolve hardening. We need to find out what those symbols mean. We can't let fear dictate our actions. That thing is connected to something much bigger, some truth we're meant to uncover. Just then, the roar shattered the silence once more, closer than ever, a terrifying promise that their nightmare was just beginning. The ice cracked beneath their feet, a warning of something primal stirring beneath the depths. They began scanning their surroundings, the abyss swallowing shadows at the edges of their vision. The symbols felt more alive now, radiating a resonance that almost hummed under their fingertips. "Guys, there's something here," Mark said, suddenly galvanizing the group. "Look!" He crouched beside the figured markings, illuminating them with his dying flashlight. Just as they leaned closer, a piercing shriek echoed, as if signaling an awakening. A cold rush of air enveloped them, heavy with dread. What lay just ahead could unravel everything they thought they knew about their world, or it could lead to their demise. As the shadows converged, they stood on the brink. Could they harness the power of the symbols before it consumed them, or would they be trapped in the dark forever? The fate of their journey hung in the balance, trembling like a thread about to snap. The world around them suddenly shifted. A tremor pulsed beneath the ice, sending shards of frozen ground splintering into the air. They barely had time to react before an ear-splitting crack shattered the silence, and the solid ground beneath their feet buckled like an old ship's deck in a violent storm. "Back! Get back!" Jess yelled, her heart racing as she backed away from the chasm opening before them. Fear twisted in her gut like a vice. Was this it? Had they just awakened something that should have remained buried forever? Mark dropped his flashlight, the beam flickering wildly across the ice formations as the crack widened, revealing the dark abyss below. The roar erupted again, so palpable it felt like it was tearing through the fabric of their reality. The air vibrated with its fury, and Jess clutched her ears, trying to muffle the terrifying sound. "Sarah, grab Mark," Jess shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. She turned to reach for them, a frantic urge pushing her. They didn't have time for fear. In an instant, Mark's flashlight beam caught something at the edge of the chasm, something bright and swirling, almost mesmerizing. "Look, what is that?" His voice wavered, caught between wonder and terror. But Jess didn't take her eyes off the widening crack. "No, we can't get drawn in. We have to go." Panic gripped her. The sound of ice groaning beneath them threatened to swallow them whole. Then a chilling wind swept over them, a breath from the depths of the unknown, chilling them to the bone. Shadows danced at the edges of their vision as the abyss stirred ominously. Jess felt a tightness in her chest, an instinctive warning pulsing through her veins. Whatever lay there had been waiting, and now they were standing on the threshold. "Forget the symbols, this is about survival," Sarah shouted, her voice laced with urgency. "We can't let that thing find us." But Mark remained transfixed by the radiant light swirling from the cavern's depths. "Could be important. What if it tells us how to stop that thing?" His eyes shone with an intensity that filled Jess with dread. "Mark, get away from there," Jess pleaded, her heart racing as she sensed the shift, the way life seemed to thrum beneath the ice, as if something ancient was awakening. As Mark leaned closer, a sudden pulse resonated from the chasm, a fierce, unearthly roar mixing with the glowing forces beneath. They were drawn forward, almost hypnotized by the brilliance, but Jess felt a sickening realization hit her. This wasn't just a light. It felt like a beckoning, a trap laid out by the darkness. "Mark, run." Jess's plea broke through the fog of fascination. He hesitated for a split second, then turned as the ground erupted. The chasm widened, exposing a vast underground cavern replete with ancient carvings. But it was too late. The earth shook violently, throwing them off balance. They tumbled backward, helplessly rolling away from the widening crack as it swallowed the light. Jess braced herself, shielding her face with her arms. A deep rumble echoed, filling the air with chaos as the icy ground broke apart. When silence fell, Heavy and thick, they struggled to rise, shaken but alive. The haunting darkness beckoned them from the chasm, whispers echoing like distant wails, hinting at forgotten secrets and terrible truths. The symbols shimmered faintly in the gloom, a reminder that they were barely scratching the surface of something much larger. "What do we do now?" Sarah gasped, breath coming fast as she looked at Jess, fear etched in her features. They're connected somehow. "We need to figure out what they mean before it's too late," Jess whispered, shaking off the ice, her voice filled with a growing determination. But as they gathered their thoughts, remnants of icy dust swirling in the air, the familiar roar rose once more, closer than before. Their surroundings felt alive, the many eyes of the ancient past watching, waiting. "Run!" Jess shouted, the echo of her own fear driving them forward. The icy landscape stretched endlessly, perilous and unforgiving. Each step felt like a race against time. But what other secrets did the ice hold? Just as they pushed through the last markers of light, a glint caught Jess's eye. She turned, and in the fleeting instant, a monstrous shape loomed behind. There it was, manifesting from the shadows, a figure so vast it blotted out the sun. What had they unleashed, and would they ever escape its grasp? The chilling question lingered in the frigid air, a threat wrapped in an icy embrace that promised their ultimate test was still to come. Adrenaline surged through Jess as she felt the hairs on her neck rise. The monstrous shape looming behind them began to take form, and sheer terror gripped her heart. It wasn't just a shadow. It was a looming behemoth, massive and otherworldly, snarling as though it could sense their fear. "Keep running," yelled Sarah, her legs pumping furiously, as if she could outrun the darkness that pursued them. The ground trembled beneath their feet, the ice shifting dangerously, making it harder to maintain their balance. With each potential step forward, a pulse of energy seemed to resonate from the creature, sending a shockwave of dread through Jess. She glanced back, catching sight of an eye huge and filled with an intelligence that sent her instincts screaming. It wasn't just hunting. It was calculating. "Why did we come here?" Mark panted, the weight of his realization heavy in the freezing air. "Why didn't we turn back?" "Because we're not done. We have to understand." Jess shot back, fiercely. She couldn't let the fear paralyze her. They had to find answers, not just for their sake but for whatever restlessness stirred below. They plunged through a narrow passage, a grueling race against time and terror. The frost glazed the walls on either side, creating jagged formations that glinted under the scant light. Jess pressed on, her mind churning with thoughts of what lay ahead in the darkness, the echoes, the carvings, the symbols on the surface. "Over here." Sarah pointed to a faint glow spilling from a side tunnel. It flickered with a soft luminescence, beckoning them like a beacon in the storm. "Do you think it's safe?" Mark asked, hesitation etched on his face. "We don't have a choice," Jess replied, feeling the oppressive weight of urgency pressing down on them. They darted into the tunnel, the glow growing stronger until it illuminated strange markings etched into the ice walls. It seemed almost alive, pulsing rhythmically, syncing with the thumping of Jess's heart. What kind of ancient art was this? Mark squinted at the symbols, his breath fogging in the air. They look familiar, but how can they be? The frantic backing away from the chasm and the horror of the creature seemed to fade for a moment as curiosity filled him. Their SA pattern. "Focus, Mark," Jess snapped, her fear resurging as she caught the distant roar. The sound echoed down the tunnel, reverberating through the icy walls. Was the creature searching for them? The thought made Jess's heart race anew. Were they already trapped? "I'm not sure we should," Mark began. But Jess interrupted him, her voice a fierce whisper. "Look, that symbol there." Jess pointed at one shining symbol that stood apart, an unmistakable figure emanating an eerie blue glow. "What if it's a key?" "But to what?" Sarah said, scanning the faces of her friends, dread pooling in her chest. "We'll only find out if we attempt to activate it," Jess urged, determination sharpening her voice. "It might lead us to answers." As she stepped forward, the glow pulsed, responding to her presence. The air around them crackled with energy, a shifting force that seemed ready to unleash something profound. Jess, no, Mark warned, his own instincts tugging at him. But the moment had come. Just as Jess reached out to make contact with the symbol, an icy wind surged through the tunnel, fierce and unnatural, as if the very walls were agonizing at her approach. And then chaos unfurled. The lights began to swirl, the markings on the walls erupting with life, shining brighter than before. She felt a connection, a deep-seated vibration that echoed in her bones. But as fear mingled with anticipation, the monstrous roar reverberated again, shaking the foundation of the cavern. "Something's happening," Sarah screamed, eyes wide with panic. Before Jess could respond, the ground shuddered violently beneath them. The energy swirling around turned chaotic, sending icy shards flying as the very structure of the tunnel began to crumble away. In that fractured moment, Jess realized. They were not alone in this dance of discovery and doom. Whatever lay beneath the ice was determined to break free, and they were merely pawns in its game. As Jess clung to the fading glow of the symbol, the world around them shattered like glass, stranding them at the precipice of a reality they had unwittingly unleashed. Would they uncover the truth before it consumed them? The weight of that question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding, as silence threatened to engulf them. And from the depths, a voice, deep and resonant, whispered into the void. Awaken. What other horrors awaited them once the dust settled? The ground trembled beneath their feet as the chilling voice echoed, lingering in the icy air. Jess felt paralyzed, her hand hovering just inches from the glowing symbol. Instinct screamed at her to pull back, to run, but curiosity melded with terror, tightening her grip on the moment. Then, the world erupted. The air crackled with energy, sending shockwaves through the tunnel as ice shards rained down around them. They were trapped in a chaos of light and sound, the luminescent symbols morphing into a kaleidoscope of alien shapes. Jess barely had time to scream as she was yanked back from the pulsing figure, Sarah clutching her arm with desperation. "Run! We need to get out of here," Sarah shouted, her voice barely cutting through the cacophony. The structure of the tunnel began to collapse, the walls shifting ominously as if they held secrets better left buried. Mark, shaken but resolute, rallied them. "This way." He dashed toward a barely visible exit at the far end of the tunnel. Jess followed instinctively, but doubt clawed at her insides. What had they unleashed? What lived beneath the ice? And was it angry? They raced forward, zigzagging through the chaos, hearts pounding like drums in their chests. With each collision of stone and ice, the ceiling threatened to cave in. Jess glanced back, her breath hitching in her throat as she saw the monstrous eye again, glaring at them through the swirling energy. "Faster!" Mark urged, his fear igniting a primal instinct to survive as they sprinted. The air thickened, the ground trembling more violently. The farther they got from that strange symbol, the more frigid it became, as if the warmth of life was being siphoned away. Jess couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted, the creature shaping the chaos around them. They burst into a wide chamber, gasping for breath. The low light illuminated bizarre rock formations, and for a moment, it felt safer, calmer. But that illusion shattered as an earthquake roared through the ice, sending a shower of frozen fragments cascading down. "Over there," Jess cried, pointing to an archway at the far end, encased in ice yet somehow unscathed. Felt like the only chance. They barreled toward it as the room shook violently. Jess couldn't help but cast a glance back. The creature was now emerging, its massive form wrapping around the tunnel entrance, a dark silhouette against the chaotic whirl of colors. Its roar vibrated through the air, a haunting melody filled with rage and hunger. "Go, go, go!" Mark shouted, his urgency fueling their sprint. They reached the archway, squeezing through just as an immense weight crashed behind them. Jess closed her eyes for a brief moment, expecting to feel the icy grip of doom. But instead, the cold gave way to a warmth that felt almost surreal. Opening her eyes, Jess found herself in a sprawling cavern. Bioluminescent flora lit the chamber, casting an otherworldly glow. The air felt different, thicker, charged with something ancient. The oppressive dread lingered, but here, in the embrace of this strange beauty, something whispered of hope. "What is this place?" Sarah gasped, eyes wide with awe and terror. "I don't know. But we can't stay here," Mark answered sharply. "That thing is coming." Jess felt a pull toward the center of the cavern, a faint resonance beckoning her, much like the symbol that had reacted to her touch. But a guttural growl interrupted her thoughts, grounding her in reality. "Do we go further inside?" Jess questioned, fear laced with curiosity. The feeling of being watched returned, 1,000 eyes assessing their every move. "No, we have to find a way out," Mark shouted, pulling them away from the heart of the cavern. But Jess hesitated, feeling the strange draw deep inside her a connection to whatever lay ahead. This could be the key. "Wait, if we understand this place, maybe we can control what we unleashed," Jess argued, heart racing. "We might just find the answers." As she voiced her thoughts, an eruption echoed through the cavern. The ground shook again as the creature's form cast an elongated shadow across them, its presence a dark specter against the glowing wonder. What secrets had they stumbled upon in this ancient, unknown realm? Were they inching closer to salvation or sealing their doom? Just as Jess felt ready to step further into the depths, an ominous voice resonated through the chamber, chilling her blood. "You dare trespass, awaken to your fate," fear surged. At that moment, choices lay heavy on their shoulders, poised to reshape everything they thought they knew. What awaited them next would determine whether they were saviors or simply the next victims in a greater game. Would they embrace the call, or flee from the abyss? The air in the cavern felt electric, crackling with the weight of unspoken danger. Jess's hands trembled, clenching and unclenching as the deep voice echoed again, vibrating through her chest. It wasn't just a warning. It was a promise of chaos yet to come. "Awaken to your fate," the words hung heavy, wrapping around them like an icy shroud. The shadows stretched longer, creeping toward them as if gathering courage to pounce. Mark glanced at Jess, his eyes wide with panic. "Let us go. Now," he shouted, breaking the spell that held them. But Jess could feel the pull stronger than ever, a siren call from the heart of the cavern. Every fiber of her being screamed to step deeper, yet the fear gnawed at her insides. "Jess," Sarah's voice sliced through the haze. "We can't stay here. We have to find a way out before it catches us." Still, Jess felt tied to the glowing roots and strange flora surrounding her. They pulsed softly, almost in rhythm with her heartbeat. "But what if no buts?" Mark cut her off, dragging her backward. "That thing is out there." A rumble shook the floor. It felt as if the earth was groaning in response to their conflict. And Jess realized the thing Mark feared was no longer a distant threat. It was rushing towards them, ready to engulf them. "Let go." She pulled her arm from Mark's grip. Determination flared inside her. "I need to know what this means." "No, this isn't a game, Jess." He lunged at her, but she sidestepped, pushing past him toward the vibrant, undulating center of the cavern. The pulsating colors enveloped her, warmth radiating from the bioluminescent flora. She felt their energy begging for recognition, whispering secrets long buried under layers of ice. "What are you doing?" Sarah's eyes darted back to the entrance, terror painted across her face. Jess reached out, fingertips brushing against a glowing blossom. Instantly, electric energy surged through her. Fragments of images flooded her mind. Visions of ancient rituals, of worship, of something so powerful it felt divine. The creature's shadows writhed just outside her consciousness, battling with the light of the flora. "Jess," Sarah yelled, but the world around her faded. Standing amidst the glowing life, Jess felt connected to something larger, ancestral. This isn't just about survival. They weren't just trespassers in a hidden world. They were part of its story. Faint echoes of time reverberated in her soul, and she took a deep breath, summoning the courage. The ground shook violently, breaking the moment. The shadow billowed out of the tunnel, filling the cavern with a palpable dread. Jess spun back just in time to see the creature unfurl, its enormous form glistening like black ice, eyes blazing with fury. Awaken, it growled again, the air thick with its rage, an elemental force demanding retribution. You trespass, you will pay. Mark and Sarah scrambled back, fear driving their frantic movements. Jess's heart raced as she faced the creature. They had trespassed, but that connection whispered of power. Stay back, Jess shouted, a fire igniting within her. Her pulse synchronized with the cavern's pulse, each beat robust and alive. I want to run. The creature paused, its gaze shifting, as if it sensed her resolve. The bright flora rippled, sending a shockwave through the air, and the shadow hesitated. Do you wish to understand? It rumbled, its voice echoing around them and shattering the barrier of fear. Or will you flee from the truth? Jess felt every eye in the cavern boring into her, each pulse of energy offering a choice. This was no mere escape. They hadn't merely stumbled into an ancient secret. They had awakened a force. We are here to learn, she shouted, her voice clarity amid the turbulence. The creature growled, the shadows swirling faster, drawing closer. Then know your fate. You may awaken more than just truth. The abyss has an appetite for those who delve too deep. The warning hung in the air, wrapping around their throats. Panic rose among Mark and Sarah, but Jess stood firm. The creature's stare bore into her, the worlds aligning. Would she heed its words, or would their quest spiral into a nightmare? Hearts racing, Jess faced the inevitable. The glow from the flora brightened, pulsating wildly in tune with her racing heart, and as she took the next step forward, something deep within her shifted. What have we unleashed? She whispered, fear mingling with the thrill of the unknown, both hopeful and terrifying as the shadows coiled tighter around them. A tremor of recognition passed through the cavernous soul. They were on the edge of discovery or destruction, and Jess couldn't help but wonder, could she control what she unleashed, or would it consume them all? The creature's eyes narrowed, a promise lingering in the darkness. The choice is yours, little one, and every choice yields a consequence. Jess turned, heart pounding. Would she take that monstrous leap into the unknown, or would they flee one last time? The cavern pulsed around them, a living entity, and it felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for her answer. The fabric of fate tingled in the air, ready to snap. What awaited them, answers or doom? Only one thing was clear. They were about to find out. Then, a chilling howl echoing her very thoughts. Jess's heart raced as the howl reverberated through the cavern, slipping into her bones like a chill. The creature shook its massive head with an annoyed growl, sending dark tendrils spiraling through the air. Mark and Sarah backed away further, terror etched across their faces. Jess, Mark shouted, eyes wide, voice trembling. That thing. We need to get out of here right now. But Jess felt an insistent pull, a connection stronger than fear. The cavern seemed to hold its breath, its pulsing heart echoing her own. No, we can't just run away. What if there's a way to understand this? Understand? Sarah's voice cracked. This is a monster, Jess. It's going to kill us. The creature's presence loomed over them, an enormous shadow filled with menace. Its gaze shifted, weighing their resolve, and in that moment, Jess felt the weight of an ancient power crackling beneath her fingertips. She could unleash it if only she knew how. Awaken to your fate, the growl was quieter now, almost intimate, sending a shiver down her spine that a sudden wave of determination surged through her. The colors of the flora surrounding her flared brighter, as if urging her forward. Tell me what I must do, Jess declared, her voice cutting through the tension. I'll accept whatever fate lies ahead. The creature paused, its eyes narrowing into slits as if assessing her. Your will shall summon what lies beneath. But know this. The abyss is not just a void. It harbors memories, your memories. Her blood ran cold. Memories? What do you mean? The shadows deepened, curling like smoke. Speak your truth, and it will awaken. It rumbled. But beware. Not all truths are welcomed, nor do they hold light. Mark's hand grasped Jess's arm hard. Don't listen to it. We need to leave. The pleading in his eyes was palpable. Her pulse quickened as she stared into the eyes of the beast. She could feel its ancient anger, a sorrow rooted deep, and the overwhelming weight of lost stories begging for recognition. "I have to understand," she whispered, shaking free of Mark's grip, stepping forward bravely as a spark ignited in her core. "Jess, no," Sarah gasped, panic flooding the cavern. Ignoring them, Jess let her fingers brush the bioluminescent flora again. All at once, a rush of images flooded her mind. She saw herself, small and frightened, staring out over a vast expanse of ice, the wind howling like a lost soul. She heard whispers, laughter, and sobbing intertwined echoing through the shadows of her past, memories she had buried long ago. "Awaken to your fate," the creature murmured again. The shadows twitched impatiently. Suddenly, visions spun faster, layering over each other. A time when she had felt utterly alone. A moment of survival that sparked her drive for discovery. The whispers twisted into a chorus, drowning out everything else. "You must face it. Face your fears." "Jess, stop," Mark pleaded as he grabbed her again, this time more forcefully, as if he could shake sense into her. The energy around her cracked and sparked, a whirlwind of colors swirling, blurring the distinction between her memories and reality. "Let me go," she shouted, grappling for clarity amid the chaos. This is the only way. With every ounce of will she could muster, Jess drew from the heartbeat of the cavern, gathering energy from the vibrant flora all around her. A wave of light surged through her, igniting her senses, each pulse a reminder of her strength. "Face your truth," the creature roared, shadows reaching toward her, desperate for release. In that instant, Jess felt it all coalesce: the fear, the pain, the bravery. It fused into one powerful revelation. She had the choice to run, or to confront what lay beneath. What will happen?" she stammered, heart pounding against her ribs. "Only you can unearth it," the creature declared, a rumble of thunder choking the air in the cavern as the last word left its lips. The ground pulsed fiercely beneath her feet, and shadows loomed ever closer, hungry for her next move. Then, a thunderous crack split the air, echoing Jess's thoughts juxtaposed against growing tension. Had she truly awakened something within herself, or was it merely a ruse of the cavern's dark heart? The edges of her reality began to blur. Would they find clarity or succumb to chaos? Jess's breath caught, fingers poised over the vibrant roots that throbbed with a life of their own, waiting what lay in the depths. And would she dare to confront it? She had to choose, but in that moment, the choice felt as ethereal as the shadows swirling just beyond her reach. And once again, a chilling howl echoed through the cavern, rattling everything in its wake. The ground shook violently beneath Jess's feet, the shadows swirling closer as if drawn to her defiance. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, an explosion waiting to happen. Fear coursed through her, mingling with determination, creating a potent cocktail that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "Jess!" Mark's voice was barely a whisper, full of dread. Sarah's eyes were wide, wet with unshed tears, her fear palpable. "You can't do this. We have to go." But Jess felt a pull stronger than their panic. The creature was watching her, its gaze a profound mix of ancient sadness and fierce power. "Needed her. I can't run away anymore," she murmured. More to herself than to them, she pressed her palm against the glowing roots. A flood of memories surged through her. Flickers of laughter echoed with shadows of sorrow. The ice, a vast expanse whispering secrets buried beneath its frozen surface, called out. She understood now. Dreams mingled with regrets. It was time to confront what lay lurking in the darkness of her mind, a darkness she had long avoided. "Awaken." The creature's voice rose with the crescendo of her thoughts. The shadows around them rippled like a black tide, hungry for the truth that had kept her shackled. What had she seen on that ice? What had triggered the loneliness she now felt so acutely? The shadows twisted at her side, coaxing her to remember, to reveal herself. "Your memories are threads woven into this web," the creature explained, its tone softer, almost coaxing. "Without them, the darkness will consume you." Just couldn't he breathe. Memories of family vacations, the warmth of her mother's embrace faded by the snap of ice. She had buried that moment deeply. The loss of her father, The swing set now rusting in a garage, laughter frozen in time. She had convinced herself that she was over it, that it was behind her, but now it felt like a weight dragging her down. No more running, she whispered, each word a pledge as the cavern trembled with the weight of her resolve. As if in response, a wave of light erupted from the roots, illuminating the shadows that clung to her like a second skin. They recoiled, hissing like a creature burned by sunlight. Jess closed her eyes, drawing strength from the pulse beneath her palm, the heartbeat of the cavern and, perhaps, of herself. Let it go, the creature commanded, its growl lower and more resonant. Face your truth. With a snap, the darkness lunged, wrapping around her. Pain sliced through her as memories flooded back. The moment her father left, the shattered glass, each jagged piece piercing her innocence. It had hurt, so much it had hurt, but it had also made her resilient. She blinked through tears, confronting it all as if a dam had broken. She was stronger than the abyss. The shadows couldn't define her. Remember the joy, she breathed, and with that, a flood of warmth cascaded over her. The roots burned brighter, swallowing the darkness in waves of color. Laughter reverberated in her ears, echoing from horizons she thought lost forever. But the shadows thrashed against her resolve. A howl erupted, the creature's fury intertwining with her pain, threatening to drown her once again. Jess, Mark shouted, voice cracking with desperation. Please, hold on. She cried back, channeling every ounce of strength, every joyful memory, binding them like ropes to form a barrier against the siege of shadows. This ends now. Light burst forth, pure and unyielding, flooding the cavern as the shadows shrieked. The echoes clashed, fear against courage, darkness against light. Jess felt the heat surge through her, clashing violently with the cold fear that had gripped her heart for so long. Then, in that glaring moment when the shadows recoiled, she realized the creature wasn't just a monster, it was a guardian of buried truths. What will happen now? She gasped, her heart racing as the dust settled in waves. The cavern's heartbeat slowed, but the remnants of darkness lingered, swirling like smoke. Your choice is not yet complete, the creature rumbled, tension still crackling in the air. Awaken fully, and the memories will reveal the path. As Jess stood at the precipice of revelation, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking beneath, an even deeper shadow waiting to emerge. And as the last echoes of the howl faded into a haunting silence, the realization hit her hard. What more was hidden and what could it unleash? The ground had stopped shaking, but Jess could still hear her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The bioluminescent flora pulsed rhythmically around her like a protective aura, a stark contrast to the mayhem that had just transpired. She felt raw but alive, washed over with waves of clarity. But clarity brought with it a new kind of weight. Jess, what just happened? Mark's voice broke through her thoughts, full of disbelief. He staggered toward her, eyes wide and searching, as if she were a puzzle he desperately needed to piece together. I think I faced it, she managed to say, feeling the power still coursing through her veins. The creature, the shadows, it's all tied together. They're not just coming for us, they need to understand too. Their SA connection. Sarah stepped forward, urgency flooding her features. But how? What does that mean? Jess took a deep breath, remembering the chaotic blend of memories and shadows. This place, it's like a mirror, reflecting everything buried inside us. She gestured to the swirling remnants of darkness, now retreating like mist before the dawn. It holds our fears but also our strength. Maybe that's why we were brought here, to change our fates. Just as she finished speaking, a soft glow emanated from the heart of the cavern. Shapes began to emerge from the shadows, ethereal figures woven from the very fabric of the bioluminescent flora. Ghostly apparitions danced around them, offering a sense of deep comfort amidst the lingering unease. Each figure told a story, echoes of ancient struggles, lost love, and forgotten laughter. Jess felt their pain, their joy and entire history spilling out like sunlight through the cracks of a broken wall. The monstrous guardian observed, shrouded in silence, but its presence felt less threatening now, almost benevolent. Jess found her voice rising above the hum of the luminescent whispers. I think we're meant to listen, she said, looking back at Mark and Sarah. To give these memories the chance to be free. Mark nodded slowly, anxiety still etched in his brow but softened by newfound understanding. Let us do this, then. Together. Sarah reached for Jess's hand, her grip steadying them both against the tempest of uncertainty as they stepped forward. The cavern seemed to vibrate vibrantly. The shadows curled toward them, but this time they felt more akin to a gentle embrace rather than a menacing threat. Jess reached out, touching the nearest apparition. It flickered but then solidified momentarily, revealing a glimpse of a child playing in the snow, laughter ringing sweetly against the cold silence. Whose memory is this? Sarah breathed, entranced. I think it's all of ours, Jess replied. They're remnants of the past, seeking solace, just as we seek resolution. In unison, they wove through the flickering figures, listening to their stories, sharing their own fears and hopes. They spoke of loss but also of rebirth, of winter yielding to spring. The cavern pulsed with acceptance, each memory intertwining until darkness and light became a new tapestry filling the air. But as the last of the memories began to dissipate, a soft echo reverberated through the cavern, sparking a new urgency. The guardian moved in closer, reminding them of its presence. What must you do now? It urged, its voice low yet powerful. Jess felt the weight of the question. She didn't have just her fate in her hands. It was the fate of all those memories and, by extension, the fate of their future too. We need to make a choice, she said quietly. To continue exploring and risk awakening the darkness again, or to leave, knowing we've broken the cycle of fear and learned to face it together. Mark's gaze flicked toward the entrance where shadows still lingered, and fear danced in his eyes. What if we can't contain it? What if it comes back even stronger? Jess swallowed hard, uncertainty coiling in her stomach. If we leave now, we can return one day with new knowledge, a new strength. We have to trust ourselves. We've faced something no one else has. Sarah squeezed Jess's hand tight. Then let us bring those lessons back with us. We aren't just explorers anymore. We are part of this. We'll show others how to face their own dark truths. With renewed resolve, they turned to the guardian. We accept your challenge, Jess declared, her voice steady. We'll awaken and share what we've learned, pushing back against fear and darkness. The creature tilted its head, shadows rising around it like a protective cloak. Your choice will echo through the ages. Awaken, then, and carry the memories with you, for knowledge has the power to liberate. As Jess and her friends moved toward the shimmering archway, a profound warmth enveloped them. The cavern seemed to sigh as shadows slipped back into their corners, the ancient threat retreating into the depths once more, but now less fearsome than before. With one last glance at the glowing flora, Jess took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her memories settle inside her, like a comforting embrace. They weren't leaving everything behind. They were stepping into a new chapter, armed with understanding and humanity. The light guided them, illuminating the path back to the surface. Together, they ventured forward, carrying the truth of their encounter and perhaps the potential to change the way their world saw the dark. They were more than survivors now. They were awakening. As they broke through the surface and into the icy air, Jess turned. She watched the cavern yawn behind them, a confluence of shadow and light, a reminder of the dance between fear and hope. Let us go share our story, she said, a determined fire glowing in her chest. And in that moment, Jess and her friends stepped into their future, hearts unified against the dark, ready to face whatever the world might throw at them next. Now it's your turn to take action. Don't let this moment pass you by. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories unfolding. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this adventure alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and what you'd do in Jess's shoes. And, for the love of storytelling, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Grab it before it slips away.